According to the federal statute detailing his salary, Comey is paid the rate set for level 2 of the executive salary schedule. That means he makes $185,100 a year. As a result, Comey's remarks strongly implied that the Bureau paid at least $1.3 million to get onto the phone, which had belonged to Syed Rizwan Farook, who, with his wife, killed 14 people during the December 2 terror attack in San Bernardino, California. But it was, in my view, worth it, the FBI director said, of what it cost to access the phone's data. Federal authorities have not publicly revealed who helped the FBI unlock the San Bernardino iPhone, which was at the center of an extended fight between the government and Apple. The Justice Department had maintained that only Apple could help it access the phone without erasing all its data, before abruptly saying it had gotten help from an outside party and no longer needed Apple's assistance. According to people familiar with the issue, the FBI cracked the phone with the help of professional hackers who were paid a one-time flat fee. Law enforcement officials have said recently that the FBI has so far found no links to foreign terrorists on the phone. And in other FBI news, FBI Director James Comey says there's no timetable for the FBI to complete its investigation into Hillary Clinton's use of a private email server while she was Secretary of State. Comey told an Aspen Security Forum audience on Thursday that the FBI does not set timetables on any of its investigations. The comments echo assertions that he and Attorney General Loretta Lynch have made in recent months. He said he's personally close to this probe, which is looking into whether sensitive information that flowed through Clinton's email server was mishandled. He said that he appreciates the interest in the investigation and that he's confident that the investigation is being done competently, honestly, and independently.
From Spokane, Washington, months before their takeover of a national wildlife refuge became an international fascination, an armed group of ranchers made its presence known in the surrounding Oregon community, following around the sheriff, his deputies, and their families, and intimidating those who publicly disagreed with them, Harney County Sheriff Dave Ward said. The federal government has charged 26 people in connection with the 41-day occupation of the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge this winter in a protest over land policy. The group's leader, Ammon Bundy, first requested a meeting with Ward on November 5. Ward told Spokane County Sheriff Ozzie Konechvich during a podcast this week, Bundy and fellow protester Ryan Payne were already talking about doing more than just protesting the prison sentence of two local ranchers, Dwight L. Hammond Jr. and Stephen D. Hammond, who were charged with twice setting fire to government land. Bundy and Payne wanted Ward to prevent federal officials from taking the Hammonds into custody. It was made pretty clear to me that if I went along with their agenda, everything would be all right, Ward said. There were a lot of ultimatums and saber rattling. On November 19, Bundy was back for a second meeting, this time accompanied by 10 other men, most of them armed. They're also armed were men outside the building, making the sheriff vastly outnumbered in his own office. Ward said he made it clear that his job included enforcing the orders of the court. Soon his dispatch center was flooded with so many calls complaining about his stance that it was essentially shut down. More strangers began arriving in town. Some followed the sheriff, his deputies, their family members, Ward said. People who put up signs or Facebook pages against the Bundys were harassed, and at least one person fled town in fear for his safety, Ward said. Blaine Cooper and John Ritzheimer, who would become central figures in the standoff, followed Ward and his family as they went Christmas shopping, Ward said. Others followed them in the grocery store, and Payne once complained to Ward that Ward's mother had threatened him, Ward said. I understand she's a scary woman, he said. She's 74 years old, has a pacemaker, and is 5 feet 3 inches tall. Ammon Bundy faces a variety of charges from the Oregon standoff and from a 2014 armed standoff in Nevada in a long-running dispute over management of public lands. He has pleaded not guilty to some charges and refused to enter pleas to others. He remains in federal custody. Bundy's lawyer, Mike Arnold, said Wednesday that it was members of the sheriff's family who had threatened Payne. I appreciate that the more Sheriff Ward talks, the more he contradicts himself, Arnold said. During the standoff, Ward said his primary concern was keeping innocent civilians out of the line of fire. The area is slowly getting back to normal, Ward said, but locals still get nervous every time they see a car with out-of-state license plates. Ward was in Spokane this week at the invitation of the FBI to talk with local law enforcement officials about his experience during the takeover.
From Kapolei, Hawaii, two pilots are slowly carving their way into a new future of solar-powered flight as one of them embarks on the latest leg of their around-the-world journey in a plane powered only by the sun. After some uncertainty about the winds, the Solar Impulse team took off from Hawaii early Thursday. The aircraft landed in Hawaii last July, but was forced to stay in the islands after the plane's battery system sustained heat damage on its trip from Japan. The Swiss-made Solar Impulse 2 is now on course to land in Mountain View, California in about 3 days. The aircraft started its journey in March 2015 from Abu Dhabi, the capital of the United Arab Emirates, then made stops in Oman, Myanmar, China, and Japan. It's on its ninth leg of its circumnavigation. Pilot Bertrand Piccard, who was flying this leg of the trip, said the idea of crossing the ocean in a solar-powered plane a few years ago stressed him out. But Thursday morning, he was confident that things would go according to plan. Piccard also said the flight's destination in the heart of Silicon Valley is fitting. He said on his way to the airfield that when the plane lands there, it will land in the middle of the pioneering spirit. Piccard's co-pilot, Andre Borsberg, said the plane represents what we could do on the ground in our communities, in our cities. The team was delayed in Asia as well. When first attempting to fly from Nanjing, China to Hawaii, the crew had to end the trip early and divert to Japan because of unfavorable weather and a damaged wing. A month later, when the weather conditions were right, the plane departed from an airport in Nagoya in central Japan for Hawaii. That trans-Pacific leg was the riskiest part of the plane's global travels, as there was nowhere for it to land in an emergency. The same is true for the trip from Hawaii to the U.S. mainland. The plane's ideal flight speed is about 28 miles per hour, though that can double during the day when the sun's rays are strongest. The carbon fiber aircraft weighs more than 5,000 pounds, or about the same as a minivan or mid-sized truck. The wings of Solar Impulse 2, which stretch wider than those of a Boeing 747, are equipped with 17,000 solar cells that power propellers and charge batteries. The plane runs on stored energy at night.
From Quito, Ecuador, the death count from Ecuador's worst earthquake in a decade rose to at least 587 on Thursday, even as the country faced another grim toll, a long and costly reconstruction effort likely to cost billions of dollars. President Rafael Correa has announced that he would raise sales taxes and put a one-time levy on millionaires to help pay for reconstruction. The damage from the 7.8 magnitude quake adds to already heavy economic hardships being felt in the OPEC nation because of the collapse in world oil prices. Even before the quake, Ecuador was bracing for a bout of austerity, with the International Monetary Fund forecasting the economy would shrink 4.5% this year. In a televised address late Wednesday, Correa warned the nation of a long and costly post-quake recovery and said the economic pain couldn't fall only on hard-hit communities along the coast. I know we're at the most difficult stage right now, but it's just the beginning. Rescuers continued to comb through the rubble in coastal towns hit hardest by the quake, but the clock was running down for finding survivors. Rescue workers have said a person without serious injuries can survive up to a week buried in debris in the Ecuadorian heat. Thursday, Jorge Zambrano, mayor of the community of Manta, announced that 3 people had been pulled from beneath a collapsed building the night before and vowed to continue searching. "I still have hope we can find more people who are still alive beneath the rubble," he said. "If we have even a hope of life, we must work with extreme care." Researchers or rescuers also found a more unusual survivor. A flapping white and brown duck was pulled from underneath a pile of rubble, becoming a social media celebrity in a country eager for good news. Using authority granted by a state of emergency, he declared after Saturday night's quake, Korea said sales taxes would increase from 12% to 14% for the coming year. People with more than $1 million in assets will be charged a one-time tax of 0.9% on their wealth, while workers making more than $1,000 a month will be forced to contribute a day's wages. Those making $5,000 a month will contribute the equivalent of 5 days' pay. Taxes on companies will also go up, and Korea said he will look to sell certain state assets that he didn't specify. He is also drawing on $600 million in emergency credits from the World Bank and other multilateral lenders. Unlike the deadly earthquake that ravaged Chile in 2010, when commodity prices were at a high and most of South America was booming, Ecuador must rebuild when prices of oil, the lifeblood of its economy, near a decade low. Manufacturing is also suffering because the economy is dollarized, depriving companies in Ecuador of the same jolt the rest of South America has experienced from devalued currencies. The tax increases come in the scale of devastation as the scale of devastation continues to sink in. A helicopter flying over the damaged zone showed entire city blocks in ruins as if they had been bombed. Late Thursday, the government raised the death toll to 587. Officials listed 155 as missing, and the number of those made homeless climbed to over 23,500.
In national news briefs, can you spell harder? B hopes to stop ties. From Washington, after 2 straight years of ties, the Scripps National Spelling Bee is adding more sting. The championship rounds will last longer and the words will be harder. The Bee, now televised in prime time by ESPN, has exploded in popularity, and the spellers have gotten increasingly savvy. So instead of sticking to a list of 25 championship words selected weeks earlier, the final rounds could have as many as 75 words, and the organizers can choose harder words on the fly if the spellers don't appear to be struggling. From Boston, Massachusetts will offer tuition rebates to full-time qualifying students who begin their studies at a community college and go on to earn a bachelor's degree at a state university. The initiative would be phased in over 2 academic years starting in September. Qualifying students would receive a 10% rebate on tuition and fees upon successful completion of each semester. Officials say the students could save more than $5,000 on the cost of a 4-year degree. Scientists funded by the Simons Foundation Research Initiative on Thursday announced the launch of an online research initiative that aims to gather DNA and other information from 50,000 people with autism and their family members. Although the cause of the social communication disorder is unknown and is believed to be a mix of environmental and genetic factors, scientists have identified some 50 to 70 genes that may play a role in the condition. From New York, Spider-Man Elmo and the Statue of Liberty will just have to be on their best behavior. After fielding complaints for years about aggressive costume characters pressing tourists for tips, Mayor Bill de Blasio signed a bill Thursday to regulate where and how they operate in Times Square and to curtail any aggressive behavior. The new law allows city officials to restrict the characters' movements and keep them from blocking pedestrians in traffic-free parts of the square, which draws 39 million visitors from around the world each year, in addition to millions of New Yorkers. From Little Rock, Arkansas, the company that owns an Arkansas funeral home where bodies were found stacked on top of each other in unrefrigerated areas, pleaded guilty Thursday after felony charges were dropped against the father and son who owned the business. Arkansas Funeral Care pleaded guilty to 5 felony counts of abuse of a corpse after 13 abuse of corpse charges were dismissed against Leroy Wood and Rod Wood. The plea agreement came as a trial was scheduled to begin Monday. The company faces up to $100,000 in fines. The funeral home's license was suspended last year after the state licensing agency investigated complaints by a former employee. Investigators removed 31 bodies and 22 cremated remains from the business. And from New York, a man nicknamed the Ninja Burglar, who confessed to committing more than 100 break-ins over a decade, has accepted a plea deal with the authorities in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. Officials said Robert Costanzo pleaded guilty Thursday to 3 counts of burglary. Officials say the statute of limitations expired on many of the other cases. He faces a 25-year prison sentence. Costanzo often dressed completely in black during his crimes.
And at 20 minutes past the hour, we'll turn to local and regional news. Bill Vance's house slippers were wet. It was the 74-year-old Bellevue man's first indication on February 29 that something was wrong in the basement of his home on Hancock Street. Next came the smell. 2 to 3 inches of murky brown water, including some human waste, had seeped into the basement of his home, soaking carpet, furniture, lamps, and walls. Everything the brown sludge touched was destroyed, and Vance wasn't alone. A few houses away, Gloria Mosser, wearing flip-flops, walked down her basement stairs and stepped into the brown liquid covering the floor. Mosser had been trying to sell the rental house, which was vacant, and the muck was there for days before she discovered it. It has been nearly 2 months since a Bellevue contractor, Gerhardt Plumbing, hit a water line near the intersection of Hancock and Main Street. The contractor was working to fix a collapsed sewer line when the water line was hit. The result, water from the ruptured line, dirt, and sewage flowed into the basement of about 12 homes. The brown liquid has been removed, but many of the homes have not been repaired, leaving the homeowners looking for answers and compensation. What has begun is a lot of finger-pointing among entities involved: the city, the plumbing contractor and its insurance company, and the Metropolitan Utilities District. This week, the Bellevue City Attorney issued a press release expressing disappointment that the contractor's insurance company has refused to pay the homeowners' claims. The city called on the insurance company to step up to help these victims. The city also detailed its own investigation into what went wrong, beginning with the February 29 water line break. Workers from Gerhardt Plumbing were on the scene that day to repair an old sewer line that had collapsed. Instead, the workers hit a main water line, which was above the sewer line. When the water line was hit, thousands of gallons of water were released, said Epiphany Ramos, wastewater operations manager for Bellevue. That water then mixed with dirt from around the line and raw sewage from the lines in some of the homes, she said. Thomas Colhane, the attorney representing Gerhardt Plumbing, said the water line was hit because not all of the lines were properly marked. Gerhardt called a digger's hotline to request the location of the lines, as is required by law, before the work began, Colhane said. Other utilities came out and marked the streets, according to the attorney. Colhane said Josh Gerhardt spoke with MUD before the work began and was told he had the all clear. He is definitely sorry this happened, Colhane said. If the line had been properly marked by MUD, it wouldn't have happened. MUD disagrees that it's the source of the problem. MUD spokeswoman Tracy Christensen said Thursday that the request received from the hotline said to mark rear of property, and MUD did that. She said such requests are filled out based on information provided by the caller. According to the city, the requests were to locate lines in the backyards of several homes. There was no request for Main Street, where the water line is located, according to the city. Gearhart's insurance company, Columbia Insurance Group, has refused to pay homeowners' claims, stating that MUD had an obligation to mark all lines in the vicinity, the city's press release said. A representative of the insurance company did not respond to requests for comment on Thursday. Several homeowners said Gearhart paid to have the brown liquid in their homes cleaned up. Patsy Hangenson said men from Gearhart also helped her carry things from her parents' basement to protect them from the water. Culhane said Gearhart was just trying to help the people affected. Bellevue City Attorney Patrick Sullivan said these situations aren't all that unusual, and normally one of the parties involved takes responsibility. Within days, adjusters come in, insurance company pays it, and we're down the road to the next project, Sullivan said. This is a battle between parties, and neither one will admit an error. He said city officials are sympathetic to the homeowners, but have no immediate plans to pay for damage. Homeowners have attended 2 city council meetings and expressed their frustration. Homeowners had another meeting with city officials last week, and many had hoped the city would step in and help pay for repairs.
Time is both an enemy and a friend to the detectives of the Omaha Police Department's Cold Case Squad. It's hard to solve an old case if witnesses or suspects die, and officers can't swab a doorknob for DNA from 10 years ago. But over the years, people change. They escape violent relationships, stop hanging around bad influences, or quit a gang. Eventually, some witnesses might want to talk to police. Time helped Omaha detectives make an arrest last year in the 2012 fatal shooting of Bethany Bryant. 3 separate witnesses came forward years later and had matching stories that corroborated evidence found at the crime scene. It's always satisfying to give the family closure and get the person that's responsible for killing their loved one, said Detective Chris Spencer, who helped solve the Bryant case. In March, Tavar A. Hudson pleaded guilty to second-degree murder in Bryant's death. Hudson awaits sentencing. The homicide unit has seen recent success, making arrests in 4 cold cases since the beginning of last year. Thanks to a federal grant, detectives have been able to test more DNA samples. Last month, they arrested Charles Zimmer in connection with the 2007 slaying of his aunt, Joy Blanchard. An arrest is the culmination of tedious work and a gratifying win for the 4-person cold case squad of the homicide unit, Sergeant Sheila Check, Detectives Dave Snyder and Spencer, and part-time detective Dave Cass. It's a lot of hard work that sometimes gets you nowhere, said Lieutenant Stephanie Fidone of the homicide unit, who oversees the squad. You have to keep the patience to keep picking up and starting over and not wanting to give up. They're very dedicated. Thick binders stuffed with reports, transcribed interviews, and notes of collected evidence line the cold case office at Omaha Central Police Headquarters. On the spines are the names of 256 homicide victims since the 1960s, whose cases are yet to be solved. The team is reviewing 48 homicides, 34 are shootings, 6 are blunt force attacks, 4 are strangulations, and 3 are stabbings, and 1 cause of death is unknown. A case isn't deemed cold based on the number of years since someone was killed. It's when all leads are exhausted by officers first assigned to the case. The cold case detectives pick up where the other homicide investigators leave off. They scan the reports looking for questions that haven't been asked or items in the evidence room that, because of new technology, can now be tested for DNA. Each detective works on his or her own cases, but all are familiar with investigations and help out when needed. We'll just brainstorm about ideas on what we can do and how to move forward on some of the cases, said Schneider, who has spent 6 months with the cold case unit and a total of 7 years investigating homicides. Investigators have traveled to other states, including Nevada, Florida, and Texas, to interview witnesses who have moved. It's more likely that a witness will talk to police if officers contact them instead of waiting for them to come forward. The $270,000 federal grant awarded in 2014 allowed the squad to hire a part-time detective and conduct further DNA testing. Detectives prioritize what DNA they test because it's expensive, but the grant offers a cushion for extra analysis. It's reassuring knowing you can test all this stuff and have your answers, Schneider said. DNA technology is rapidly evolving and is essential to re-examining cold cases even from a few years ago. In Omaha, DNA first was used to convict a criminal in the 1996 Omaha murder trial, said Steve Heinrichs, the chairman in the Department of Pathology and Microbiology at University of Nebraska Medical Center. Forensic specialists can exclude non-suspects from the scene of a crime with increasing detail. This eventually should allow the evidence to conclusively identify suspects, Heinrich said. It's important to go back and look at cold cases, he said, because the new technology may be able to find or provide a solution or suspect that was not possible in the past. For the police department, a cleared case means getting enough evidence to make an arrest. A conviction doesn't always happen. Delshawn Evans, for example, was cleared by a jury in August on a first-degree murder charge in connection with the slaying of James Dancer. Evans' fingerprints were on an end table in Dancer's home where he was shot dead, authorities said, but a public defender argued that the evidence didn't directly link Evans to the slaying. We've lost a couple of convictions, but not a lot, Fadone said. These guys do a pretty good job that I don't think we lose very many in court. For relatives of victims who want swift justice, it's difficult to wait for long investigation. It could take a tip that comes in tomorrow and this case would be solved, said Spencer, who has spent 10 years investigating homicides and nearly 4 years with the cold case squad. It's just getting the right piece of information, the right evidence, the right DNA that's submitted, and get the person that's responsible. The unit receives about 1 tip to its office per week. Tipsters might be more inclined to come forward today, detectives said, since a tip leading to an arrest for a homicide is now worth $25,000 instead of the $1,000 that was paid out a few years ago. The cold case detectives work with the victims' families to make sure they understand that investigations take time. Every case that they work on and every case they look at becomes a part of them, said Captain Carrie Newman of the Criminal Investigations Bureau. They carry the torch for the family. Seck, who has worked with OPD for 22 years, has been in the homicide unit for about 10 years, remembers victims' names from 15 years ago, and she doesn't forget the names on the binders. I don't think anyone deserves to die at the hands of another individual, she said. That's what motivates me.
With a dearth of cases to consider, the work of the 2-year-old citizen board that reviews complaints against Omaha police appeared Thursday to have fizzled. Its members will take their own grumbles to the mayor today. In an April 8 letter to Mayor Gene Stothert, 4 members of the Citizens Complaint Review Board said they had decided to curtail their work, although they did not resign. The board's chairman, Fernando Butch Lucena II, wrote that it had operated without the level of support from the mayor's office that it expected. The 4 were the only ones to attend the most recent meetings of the 6-member board. We do not believe that the board, as it currently functions, meets the expectations of the people, Lequana wrote in the letter. The specific nature of the board's dissatisfaction was not clear. Its members either could not be reached or declined to answer questions. Stothert said Thursday that she thinks the members' central concern is that they have been asked to review too few complaints. They might also seek broader authority, although an expansion of the scope of the board's work will not be in the offing, Stothert said, because that almost certainly would run afoul of the police union contract or the law. Stothert said she sought today's meeting with the members of the board, which she created in 2014 by executive order. The board considers a complaint after it is first investigated by the police department and only if the person who submitted it is displeased with the disposition and seeks its review. The board has considered 6 cases since it was established in the mid-2014, said Police Captain Thomas Schaefer, who commands the section of the department that includes the Internal Affairs Unit. The number and disposition of internal affairs complaints in 2015 was not available. The year before, 355 complaints either were not sustained or the officer was exonerated or the complaints were determined to be unfounded, creating an opportunity for appeal to the board. The department sustained 203 complaints. The lack of complaints reviewed by the board suggests that the people who submit them are satisfied with the police department's handling of allegations of misconduct, Stothard said. We can't create issues for them, she said. The mayor said she had no plans to let the board dissolve and would appoint replacements if the members who signed the letter, Lacona, John Detterman, John Wright, and Judith Hill, resign. We just haven't had a whole lot of work for them, Omaha Police Chief Todd Schmaderer said. The complaints that have come through, if they were valid, they have been addressed by the department. Schmaderer said he hoped the board would continue to meet. He said the city is awaiting a signature case in which there is a disagreement between the complainant and the police command staff that has not happened yet. It's for that one complaint that comes through where the police department says there is no wrongdoing and the citizen's upset about that and can go to the CCRB for redress, he said. Not having much for the board to do is a good problem to have, the chief said. It shows that the police department has been very responsive to citizen complaints, and we take them very seriously, he said. I maintain that the police department is operating very professionally, and that is the reason these complaints have not come forward. The board is limited in its powers and scope. It issues findings and recommendations to the mayor's office. It can also review annual police department data and identify any areas of concern. The board, which works confidentially, does not have the authority to conduct its own investigations, and its recommendations are not binding on either the mayor or police chief. The board can review how police handle the matter, but it cannot review criminal investigations nor any case in which the police chief has disciplined an officer unless the officer has appealed the discipline. The board also may not review any case in which an outside authority, such as the state patrol or grand jury, has become involved. Before the complainant board, Omaha had a police auditor. Appointed in 2001, police auditor Tristan Bond was fired in 2006 by then Mayor Mike Fahey after she issued a report criticizing how police handled traffic stops involving minority drivers. Fahey said Bond had been insubordinate in issuing the report without notifying him so he could review it. In 2012, the Nebraska Court of Appeals rejected Bond's claims that she was fired in retaliation for speaking out about discriminatory activities.
The new chief executive officer of the learning community will get paid more than his predecessor. He'll also have some new duties, although he'll see some old ones go away because of a new law. David Patton will receive an annual salary of $134,000, according to a contract approved 11-1 Thursday by members of the Learning Community Coordinating Council. Under the contract, Patton is eligible to receive a $4,020 performance bonus, 3% of his base salary, if he accomplishes goals yet to be determined by the council for 2016-17. Former CEO Ted Stillwell was paid $126,851 a year. On July 1, Patton will take charge of an organization tweaked by lawmakers to eliminate a couple of key features. Remaining intact is the entity's authority to levy up to 2 cents per $100 valuation to pay for leases on its North and South Omaha learning centers and provide programs aimed at raising academic achievement for public school students who are poor and face language barriers. On the other hand, after a year, the learning community will no longer have to administer open enrollment or the controversial common levy, which pooled Omaha area property taxes to help high poverty school districts such as the Omaha Public Schools. However, those were largely perfunctory jobs that took little time or effort. Setting the common levy had become a routine annual affair, and the job of administering open enrollment was mostly been borne by the 11-member districts. One change brought on by Legislative Bill 1067 will add a new duty. The bill requires the school districts to collaborate on 3-year plans for raising achievement among all metro area students. The Community Achievement Plan is certainly going to be a huge focus of our time and resources, said Lorraine Chang, chairwoman of the council. Administering the common levy took very little time, Chang said. It required some accounting to determine how the state aid formula would affect districts, she said. The council had to set the levy, which the member districts always recommended be set at 95 cents, she said. The learning community had some responsibility to make sure open enrollment ran smoothly, but the process by which parents apply for student transfers has been in place for several years and already runs efficiently, she said. Patton is now superintendent of the Twin River Public School District in Genoa, Nebraska. Had he stayed with the district, he would have received $139,000 next year under a contract approved last December. Chang said she understands that Twin River officials are releasing him from that contract. Patton was executive director of information management services for OPS when he left in 2014 to lead the Twin River District. He was one of 2 finalists that a search firm recommended for the learning community job. His contract with the learning community begins July 1 and runs through June 30, 2018. It can be renewed for an additional year upon approval of both parties. The learning community will reimburse him for up to $5,000 in moving expenses. The contract makes him eligible to receive health and dental insurance, disability and accidental health insurance, and a retirement income plan. He will receive 15 days of vacation per year and 12 days of personal leave. Patton is a 1985 graduate of Burke High and served as an interim spokesman, assistant principal, athletic director, and director of student and community services in OPS. He and his wife, Laura, have 2 children.
The Omaha police officer killed 11 months ago while on duty was awarded the Omaha Police Foundation's highest honor Thursday. Kerry Orozco was named the Officer of the Year at a Thursday afternoon ceremony in the Scott Conference Center on the University of Nebraska at Omaha campus. She is the first officer to be given the award posthumously. Orozco was also honored with the Purple Heart at the ceremony. Orozco's mother, Ellen Holtz, and grandmother accepted the awards to standing ovations. "Thank you so much for remembering Kerry," said Holtz in tears, recalling the day her daughter died. 11 months ago yesterday. Thank you. Orozco, 29, was fatally shot by a fugitive on May 20 near 30th Street and Martin Avenue as officers attempted to arrest the man. Another officer, Sergeant Jeff Kopietz, then shot and killed him. Kopietz was awarded the Medal of Valor on Thursday for showing extreme bravery in preventing further tragedy. His wife and 2 sons accepted the award because Kopietz is in Europe hiking with his daughter. A short video announced the Officer of the Year winner, showing photos and footage of Orozco volunteering with kids and fellow officers. A voiceover listed Orozco's accomplishments and said she had a professionalism to which all officers should aspire. Orozco's $1,000 award for Officer of the Year was donated to a scholarship fund in her name with the Boys and Girls Clubs of the Midlands. "The people in Omaha are really behind this police department," said Jack Lewis, the president of the foundation. 7 other officers and 1 non-sworn support employee also were honored. Officers Terrence Cabral, Gregory Hansen, Justin Knapp, Adam Jaworski, Brian Vanderheiden, and Tim Kissel were awarded life-saving medals. Lieutenant Mark Matusa was given the Distinguished Service Medal, and Senior Crime Lab Technician Angela Harder was honored with the Ribbon of Excellence.
In metro area news briefs, a 51-year-old Omaha man was critically injured early Thursday when he was struck by a vehicle at 20th and Harney Streets. Police said Tyrone Fields was hit about 1 a.m. A rescue squad found Fields in the street at 20th and Harney near a crosswalk, police said. Fields told police he was crossing the street when he was struck by the vehicle. Police said Fields could not provide a description of the vehicle, which fled from the scene. Fields was taken to Creighton University Medical Center. Police said he suffered broken ribs and a bruised lung. His injuries were not considered life-threatening, police said. He was listed in serious condition Thursday afternoon. The crash remains under investigation. Anyone with information on the crash is urged to call police at 402-444-5627. About 240 pounds of marijuana was seized Wednesday on 420, a holiday in pot subculture, during a traffic stop in southwest Nebraska's Hitchcock County. A 2007 Saturn Outlook, driven by a 32-year-old man from Phoenix, Arizona, was pulled over by a Nebraska state trooper on suspicion of improper passing, the patrol said. The SUV was pulled over just west of Culbertson, about 10 miles west of McCook. A Red Willow County Sheriff's Officer dog indicated that drugs could be in the vehicle, the patrol said. A search led to the seizure of 240.5 pounds of pot. The driver was arrested on suspicion of possession of marijuana with intent to deliver. 3 nominees for a district judge spot in Nebraska, 2nd Judicial District, have been named. Governor Pete Ricketts will consider Michael Smith of Springfield and Stephanie Martinez and George Thompson, both of Papillion, to fill the vacancy. Whoever is appointed will replace Judge Max Kelch, who was named to the Nebraska Supreme Court in February. The 2nd Judicial District serves Cass, Otoe, and Sarpy counties. 3 Papio, Missouri River Natural Resources District access sites to the Elkhorn River in Douglas County have been closed because high water on the river has led to dangerous boating conditions. Recent rains in eastern Nebraska and southwest Iowa have brought more than 2.5 inches to some locations in the Omaha area. If river levels fall, officials will open the access sites sometime next week, said John Winkler, general manager of the Papio, Missouri River NRD. The closed sites are Elkhorn Crossing near 252nd Street and Bennington Road, Grasky Crossing off West Dodge Road, and the West Maple Road site.
And at 46 minutes past the hour, we'll turn to the death and funeral notices. These from the Lincoln Journal-Star for Friday, April 22nd. Andre Darlene Hirschberger Andre was 87 and died on March 30. Services will be held on May 7, 2016 at Palm Eastern Mortuary in Las Vegas, Nevada. Barton, Gary Lee Barton, was 76 and lived in Headlam, Kansas. He died on April 17. Bowden, Jeffrey D. Bowden, was 49 and lived in Denver. Services will be held at First Plymouth Church Chapel in Lincoln at 11:30 a.m. on April 25. No funeral home is mentioned. Bulkey, John Bulkey, was 73 and lived in Hastings. Services will be 10 a.m. today at Hastings First Presbyterian Church. Fiddler, Cora Jane Fiddler, was 90 and lived in Wahoo. The Marcy Svoboda Funeral Home in Wahoo memorials to First United Methodist Church in Wahoo. Fisher, Doris M. Fisher, was 89 and lived in Lincoln. The Butheris, Mazer, and Love Funeral Home. Glather, Lou Minor Glather, was 92 and lived in, must be the Lincoln area. The Wary Mortuary in Humboldt is handling services. Guardo, Isabel Guardo, was 80 and lived in Lincoln. A gathering of friends will be held at 2 p.m. Sunday, April 24 at Butheris, Mazer, and Love Funeral Home. Memorials are suggested to America Needs Fatima. Hakel, Sally Lynn Hakel, was 57 and lived in Lincoln. Memorials in lieu of flowers can be sent in care of the family for donation to a charitable organization in Sally's memory at a later time. The Trump Funeral Services in Lincoln. Halverson, Christopher S. Halverson, was 30 and lived in Syracuse. Memorials are suggested to the family for a scholarship in Christopher's name, the Fusselman Allen Harvey Funeral Home in Syracuse. Hasbrook Bors, Kimberly A. Hasbrook Bors, was 42 when she died in Fairbury on April 17. Hauser Baburka, Liam Michael Joe Hauser Baburka, died in Lincoln on April 27. That date can't be right. It hasn't happened yet, so I don't have a better information. Heidemann, Lola J. Heidemann, was 86 and lived in Tacoma. Celebration of life will be 2 p.m. Saturday, April 23rd at St. Peter's Lutheran Church in Elkhorn. Memorials care of the family, the Hemmingson Funeral Home in Auburn. Hoppies, Dale C. Hoppies, was 94 and lived in Ord. He was a veteran. The Bethany Lutheran Church is where services will be held at 10:30 on Monday, April 25, the Ord Memorial Chapel. Jackson, Roger E. Jackson, was 84 and lived in York. He was a veteran serving in the Naval Air Reserves. The Metz Mortuary in York is handling services. Kendrick, Larry Eugene Kendrick, was 60 and lived in Lincoln. Memorials to the Bethlehem Covenant Church in Waverly, the Roper and Sons Funeral Home. Keller, Molly A. Keller, was 98 and lived in Lincoln. The Wyuka Funeral Home, memorials in care of the family. Kobza, Joseph B. Kobza, was 90 and lived in Lampe, Missouri, formerly Ulysses and Schuyler. Memorials to the Kobza family for future designation, the Zabka Funeral Home in Seward. Moritz, Douglas Eugene Moritz, was 78 and lived in Lincoln, formerly in Arcata, California. The Aspen Aftercare Service in Lincoln. Mueller, Rosaline M. Mueller, was 86 and lived in Tecumseh. She died on April 18. Obermeyer, Fred Pete Obermeyer, was 88 and lived in Auburn. The Hemmingson Funeral Home in Auburn. In lieu of flowers, memorials to the Auburn Fire Department or Eli Davidson Missionary Fund. Payne, Dustin A. Payne, was 21 and lived in Lincoln. The Volsky Funeral Home in Seward is handling services. Reinecke, Lawrence H. Reinke, was 86 and lived in Hebron. The Kroll Funeral Home in Hebron is handling services. Rorabaugh, Gene A. Rorabaugh Sr. was 89 and lived in Cedar Falls, Iowa. He was a veteran serving in the U.S. Navy in the Pacific during World War II. The Lincoln Memorial Funeral Home is handling services. Memorials may be directed to the Bryce Gerhardt Memorial Scholarship. Rosenquist, Jody J. Rosenquist, was 49 and lived in Shickley. The Farmer and Son Funeral Home is handling services. Stadler, Mildred Joan Stadler, was 89. She lived in the Lincoln area. The Metcalf Funeral Home is handling services. Family requests your prayers in lieu of flowers. Toll, Philip Everett Toll, was 80 and lived in Bradshaw. He was a veteran. Memorials to the York Public Schools, the Metz Mortuary in York. Joyce E. Wagoner, was 78 when she died in Crete on April 18. And my final notice is for Wright, Lois Elaine Wright. She was 92 and lived in North Platte. The Odine Colonial Chapel in North Platte. Memorials to Premier Estates in North Platte.
And from the Omaha World Herald, Anderson, Doris Jean Anderson, maiden name Nusrallah, age 85. Memorial suggested to the Maple Crest Care Center. Reader Mortuary, 108th Street Chapel is handling the arrangements. Barger, William Timothy Tim Barger, age 74. Memorials will be directed by the family. Heafy Hoffman, DeWart Cutler on F Street. Barshell Travers, Loris L. Barshell Travers, age 97. Memorials to a charity of your choice. Private graveside service at Forest Lawn Memorial Park. Heafy Hoffman, DeWart Cutler on F Street. Beardmore McMartin, Denise Beardmore McMartin, age 55, of Messina, Iowa. In lieu of flowers, memorials may be given to the Messina Volunteer Fire Department. She was 55 years old. Steen Funeral Home in Greenfield, Iowa is handling the arrangements. Beatty, Victor R. Beatty, age 52, a veteran of the U.S. Air Force for 24 years. There will be Offutt Air Force Base Honor Guard providing military honors. For memorials, the family prefers that donations be sent to the funeral home or to the GoFundMe page titled Victor Beatty Memorial Fund. Heafy Hoffman, DeWart Cutler, F Street location. Bergstrom, Frank W. Bergstrom, age 85, a veteran. Memorials to the Alzheimer's Association. Heafy Hoffman, DeWart Cutler, F Street. Bernard, Barbara J. Bernard, age 67. Mass of Christian burial Friday at 10 a.m. at Holy Cross Catholic Church. Heafy Hoffman, DeWart Cutler, F Street. Bulk or Bulky, John Halsey Bulky, age 73. That's spelled Bohlke, of Hastings, Nebraska. Memorials may be given to Casa Mona or the Artis Bulky Scholarship administered by the Hastings Public Schools Foundation. There will be no viewing or visitation. Livingston Butler Volan Funeral Home and Cremation Center in Hastings is handling the arrangements. Bush, Marita L. Bush, age 66. Memorial service Sunday, April 24 at 1 p.m. at Bethesda Seventh-day Adventist Church on Ames Avenue, Raider Mortuary, Ames Chapel. Douglas, Amy Douglas, age 69. Memorial service Friday, 1 p.m. at St. Pius X Catholic Church on Blondo Street. Memorial suggested to the family or a future memorial garden in Amy's name. John A. Gentleman Mortuary and Crematory on 72nd Street. Henderson, Jean Henderson, age 84. Graveside service and committal prayers will be held on Saturday, April 23rd at 1 p.m. at Calvary Station 10. Heafy Hoffman, DeWart Cutler, F Street. Hoxie, Junior Lee Hoxie, 89, a World War II veteran and survivor of the Battle of Okinawa. Memorials are suggested to the Wounded Warrior Project. Heafy Hoffman, DeWart Cutler, F Street location. Klessig, Agnes Kotlik Klessig, age 104. A celebration of life will be held on Saturday, April 23rd at 11 a.m. at Crosby Colonial Chapel on West Center. Crosby, Burkett, Swanson, and Golden on West Center Road is handling the arrangements. Kletke, Stacy M. Kletke, age 57. Memorials to the American Cancer Society, Raider Mortuary, 108th Street Chapel. Kruger, Raymond Lynn Kruger, age 87. Private family interment at West Lawn Hillcrest Cemetery at a later date. Kramer Funeral Home on Maple Street. Kuhn, Leroy Joseph Kuhn, age 73, of Omaha, a veteran. Memorial Mass will be on Monday, April 25 at St. John's Catholic Church in Valley. Reichmuth Funeral Homes on West Maple is handling the arrangements. McGill, the Honorable Michael McGill, age 76, a veteran. In lieu of flowers, memorials to Parkinson's Foundation, Boys Town, or St. Vincent de Paul Society, Heafy Hoffman, DeWart Cutler, F Street. Namath, Gabriel Michael Namath, age 2.5. Funeral Mass, 10 a.m. Friday, April 22nd, also at St. John's Interment, Fort Calhoun Cemetery, in lieu of traditional remembrances. Memorial suggested to the Nemeth family. Seaver Sprick Funeral Home in Fort Calhoun. Obermeyer, Fred Pete Obermeyer, age 88. Memorials in lieu of flowers to Auburn Fire Department or Eli Davidson Missionary Fund. Hemmingson Funeral Home in Auburn, Nebraska is handling the arrangements. Oswald, Larry R. Oswald, age 77, a veteran of the Navy. A private family graveside service will be held in Trainer, Iowa. Memorial donations can be made to Susan G. Komen in Dallas, Texas. There is no funeral home listed. Peterson, Debbie Peterson, age 57. Memorials to be directed by the family. Bellevue Memorial Chapel of Hefe Hoffman DeVore Cutler. Piper, Jewel W. Piper, age 91. Celebration of Life Monday, April 25, 11 a.m. at Brahman Mortuary, 72nd Street Chapel. Salisbury, Michael J. Salisbury, age 69, a veteran. Military honors by Millard VFW 8334 and American Legion Post 374, Carisco Larkin Staskowitz Funeral Home on F Street. Sullivan, Kyle Scott Sullivan, age 29, of Colorado Springs, Colorado. A memorial will follow at a later date in Charleston, South Carolina. The family requests no flowers, please. A memorial fund has been established in Kyle's name to help fulfill his pledge to help end homelessness. Please send donations to Leavis Sullivan, P.O. Box 1698, Mount Pleasant, South Carolina 29465. There is no funeral home listed. Tadlock, Mabel F. Tadlock, age 79. Bethany Funeral Home, 82nd and Harrison. Thorngren, Patricia Joe Thorngren, age 72. Hefe Hoffman, DeVore Cutler on F Street is handling the arrangements. Memorials to Make-A-Wish or St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Tomerlin, David Wayne Tomerlin. Services 12 p.m. Friday at Trinity Lutheran Church. Burial at Forest Lawn Cemetery. He was a veteran. There is no funeral home listed. Trawicki, Gary Joseph Trawicki, age 67, of Griswold, Iowa. The family will celebrate Gary's life from 12 to 4 p.m. Sunday, April 24 at Hanscom Park Pavilion, 3201 Woolworth Avenue, Omaha. The family will direct memorials, Chapel of Memories on Arbor Street. Welch, Mary A. Welch, age 70. Funeral service 9 a.m. Saturday at All Morning Star Baptist Church on Burdett Street. Thomas Funeral Home on 24th Street is handling the arrangements. And my final listing is Wilcox, Arnold K. Wilcox, age 77, of Ralston, a veteran. Memorials to family for Great Grandchildren's College Fund. Kaler Dolch Mortuary in Papillion is handling the arrangements.
Listeners, memorials to the Radio Talking Book Network are tax deductible, and they go a long way toward keeping us on the air. Please keep Radio Talking Book in mind when memorials are listed as donor's choice or your favorite charity. Donations can be sent to Radio Talking Book Network at 7101 Newport Avenue, Suite 205 in Omaha. The zip here is 68152. Thank you for being a Radio Talking Book Network listener and supporter, and Bob and I will be back following a short break with the second half.
And thank you very much, Rob Blanco and Bob Godding, for reading the first hour from the Omaha World Health. We will be back, as Ralph just said, after the short break. And the first thing we need to do is to play the home delivery meal Mickey. For those listeners who need that information, here with the home delivery menu for today's meal.
Yeah, a bird called a fantail that you would have thought was pretty cool. Yeah, its tail feathers, a little bitty bird, tail's about this long, and it would expand it out.
Wow.
It flit around all over the place. It just, I tried to ask some of the names of some of them. There were these ducks that they called a bald duck, I think it was. Real common there, kind of black and white. Mallards were all over the place.
Mallards all over. Yeah, they're pretty well distributed around the world.
So Prince died, huh?
Yeah, Prince died.
So You would think Safari on an Apple would work really well. No, didn't. Firefox, fine.
Firefox, fine. Interesting. Huh. That is a really old version of OS X.
Of OS on here?
Yeah.
Oh, somebody donate the computer?
Yeah, that's.
Well, I went to Firefox, and it comes up and it seems to be working quite well.
It looks like it's probably.
I tried downloading Chrome and it said it wouldn't work on the operating system that's on here. Yeah, you should look into that if you got time. It's amazing down there. I haven't got all my pictures uploaded yet, but my wife. My daughter's mentee is a senior this year, and senior skip days, so she just skipped.
She just skipped.
Cute young lady, really sweet. Is going to be the first person in her family to graduate from high school, let alone college.
We understood that many listeners were not able to properly listen to the movie. So Pam has agreed, and I have agreed that we will re-air the movie this Saturday, April 23rd at 6:30 p.m. and Sunday, April 24th at 3:30 p.m. Thank you. And we think we have the signal problems pretty well worked out now. On KIOS, we thank them very much for working with us. Please let us know how the signal is. If it's good, it's great news. If it's not, we'll work on it and endeavor to make it better. So please, any of our listeners at any time, if you have any information you'd like to pass on to us, we really enjoy hearing from you. Please give us a call here at the Radio Talking Book Network at 402-572.
Is the market absolutely flat right now?
402 area code 572.
It can't be right. It couldn't have updated.
I'm showing down 14 on the Dow.
Oh, yeah, this thing didn't update.
For over 41 years, the Radio Talking Book Network is brought to you with the cooperation of KIOS FM in Omaha and statewide through the facilities of NET Radio and Television. Now, let's return to our readers for the second hour reading from this morning's Omaha World Herald. Here once again from Rocco and Bob Gunning.
Thank you, Paul, and welcome back, listeners. We'll start the second half with the opinion articles from the Omaha World Herald. This one is entitled Tubman Hamilton, Decision Right on the Money. Treasury Secretary Jack Lew made two excellent decisions in placing Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill and keeping Alexander Hamilton on the $10 bill. Our currency should fittingly salute notable figures who provide enduring positive examples for the nation. Harriet Tubman stands tall in our national story as an example of remarkable moral vision and personal courage. Born in slavery around 1820 in Maryland, she escaped to freedom in 1849 to Pennsylvania and dedicated her life to returning to slave territory and bringing as many people as she could out of bondage. To make just one trip required tremendous courage. Tubman wound up making 19 trips by 1860. Thanks to her extraordinary bravery and resourcefulness, more than 300 men, women, and children escaped to freedom. Tubman's selection is fitting too, in that one of our most used bills of currency will feature a woman and person of color. In addition, the back of the $10 bill will include portraits of suffragette leaders. These changes will reflect a fuller appreciation of the breadth of our history. Lew chose wisely in deciding to place Tubman on the $20 bill, moving Andrew Jackson to the back of the bill, while leaving Alexander Hamilton on the $10 bill. Hamilton was the central figure in laying the foundation of our country's financial system. He demonstrated a key understanding of economics, and his energetic work as the nation's first Secretary of the Treasury was vital in putting our country on a sound financial footing. Given these accomplishments, it's appropriate that Hamilton remains visible on our currency. As for Jackson's downgrade, he displayed a woeful approach to economics. His decisions affecting the banking system helped spur a calamitous economic downturn. With Tubman and Hamilton on some of our most frequently seen bills, Americans will be reminded of two impressive figures worth honoring.
And this editorial column comes from David Ignatius. He's a writer with the Washington Post. Amid President Obama's travels this week in Saudi Arabia, here's a surprising snapshot of what young Arabs think. They're scared about the Islamic State and terrorism. They yearn for more freedom and gender equality. They fear that the Arab Spring has made life worse, and they're increasingly skeptical about the role of traditional religious values. If these Arab reactions seem similar to what people would say in the West, maybe that's the real takeaway. Despite all the violence and extremism that plague the region, most young Arabs have sensible modern reactions. This isn't a world apart. Arab youths hate the turmoil that's wrecking their countries and want a better, more stable life. The portrait of the Arab world emerges in a remarkable survey by the public relations company Asda Burstyn Marsteller and the polling firm Penn Schroen Berland. It's actually a time-lapse photo because the Arab Youth Survey has been conducted annually for the past 8 years. By reading the back issues, you can see hopes rising with the Arab Spring in 2011, and then crashing against the reality of violence and disarray. Let's start with this year's headline. In face-to-face interviews with 3,500 youths in 16 countries, 77% of participants said they were concerned about the rise of Islamic State, and 76% said the group would fail in its ultimate goal of establishing a caliphate. Asked to explain why young people were attracted to the group, 24% cited lack of jobs, but 25% chose the answer, "I can't explain it. I don't understand why anybody would want to join." One intriguing finding of this study is that Arab youths are increasingly dubious about the role of religion in traditional values. Asked if they agreed with the statement, "Religion plays too big a role in the Middle East," 52% said yes this year, with 61% of those in Arab Gulf countries, including Saudi Arabia, sharing that view. Women's rights also get strong support. 67% of young Arabs said their leaders should improve the personal freedom and human rights of women. This progressive view had roughly equal support from young Arab men, 66%, as women, 68%. By the way, an even number of men and women were surveyed. What kind of country do these young Arabs want to live in? The overwhelming answer in 2016 for the 5th year running was the United Arab Emirates, a Muslim country that is increasingly open, tolerant, prosperous, and adapting to the modern world. The previous installments show how far the region has traveled over the past decade. In the 2009 and 10 surveys, there was a yearning for democracy, with at least 90% of the respondents in most countries saying that living in a democratic country was important to them. But they still embraced a traditional world. 68% said their religion defined them as a person, and men were far less likely than women to support equal opportunity in the workplace. This Arab conservatism had eroded by 2014, when the percentage who agreed that traditional values mean a lot to me had fallen to just 54% from 83% in 2011. The hurricane of the Tahrir Square uprising that toppled Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak in February 2011 was vividly captured by the survey. In January that year, 82% of Arab youths supported traditional values. A month later, that number had fallen 11 points. Those describing their political views as liberal jumped from 20% in January to 51% the next month. Young people overwhelmingly supported the overthrow of Mubarak in Egypt and the autocratic rulers of Libya and Yemen. The optimism and idealism of the Arab Spring were real. but so was the disillusionment that followed. The share who agreed that following the Arab Spring, I feel the Arab world is better off, collapsed from 72% in 2012 to just 36% in 2016. Egyptians bucked that pessimistic trend, with 61% still positive this year about their revolution. Here's what I draw from this survey. Young Arabs are sadder but wiser. They want a freer, more modern life, and they're skeptical about easy answers from religion or democratic elections. They know they're in a long transition and they become more pessimistic, but they still affirm in each survey our best days are ahead of us. A simple summary: don't give up on the Arabs. They're living through hell, but they want the same modern, secure world that most people do.
From the Omaha Public Pulse, Kathleen Ann Hughes of Omaha writes, in honor of Earth Day 2016, try living without the fashionable but wasteful bottled water. There are multiple reasons bottled water is harmful to the planet. Here are just a few. Transporting it from other cities, often 1,000 miles away. The unnecessary movement means energy is burned and carbon is released. The production of water bottles uses 17 million barrels of oil a year, and it takes 3 times the water to make a bottle as it does to fill it. Only 1 out of 5 water bottles is recycled. The rest are tossed in the trash and will sit in landfill for years. Recycled plastic is shipped to China and returns to the United States in other forms. In the end, it costs the consumer 1,000 times more to drink bottled water than tap water. Tap water is regulated by the FDA. Bottled water is regulated by the EPA, so there is less regulation for bottled water. Phthalates, which are a group of chemicals used to soften and increase the flexibility of plastic and vinyl, are possible carcinogens. For future generations, please consider using a stainless steel or glass reusable water bottle for your tap, filtered or reverse osmosis water. Gloria Osterberry of Omaha writes, carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas that most biologists believe is harming living organisms through global warming. The combustion of fossil fuels produces a lot of carbon dioxide. That is why we in Nebraska should reduce our use of coal and clean up how we produce energy from coal. Furthermore, we should remove barriers to the cleaner alternative that wind power presents. The legislature has attempted to promote wind energy development by passing Legislative Bill 824. It also created a special committee to study the impact of climate change on Nebraska with Legislative Resolution 455. This news gives me hope that our state can be a leader in clean power production, a foot dragger no longer. Brandon Syracuse of St. Louis writes, first, ConAgra decided to move. Now HDR has pulled plans to build a downtown headquarters because of parking issues. How much longer is it going to take for city leaders to realize that they are all but ignoring one of the biggest hindrances to revitalizing downtown Omaha's transit options are beyond inadequate? As someone who grew up in Omaha and would like to see the city thrive, I have realized that one of the biggest issues holding Omaha back is the lack of viable transit options. Downtown development always seems to resolve around issues of parking and accessibility. I've got news for Mayor Gene Stothert and other city leaders. More parking is not the answer. If Omaha would seriously address its disgraceful lack of transit options, downtown development would not need to have such an enormous reliance on parking. Omaha's bus system is pathetic for a metro area approaching 1 million people. It is imperative for the city to invest in light rail system. Yes, it's expensive, but transit is what separates Omaha from many major cities. A light rail line serving downtown would eliminate the need for a significant number of parking spaces downtown and allow for more productive use of land in the area. It would also make the city more accessible to residents and visitors alike. Perhaps as Omaha improved its transportation options, the HDR project would have proceeded at the 11th and Dodge Street sites. What other companies does downtown have to lose for Omaha to finally pay attention to transit development? Dwight Peterson of Omaha writes, it was a privilege to represent the Elkhorn neighborhood in western Douglas County in the Nebraska legislature for 16 years. Today, Luann Linehan is campaigning for that same seat, District 39, and I support her without reservation. I have known Luann for more than 3 decades and am proud to call her my friend. She is a 5th-generation Nebraskan who has faithfully served our community, state, and nation. Her platform of lower taxes, local control of schools, and creating new jobs are keys to growing our local and state economics. She has the real-world experience and leadership skills to make a difference in Lincoln. The residents of District 39 would be well served to be represented by Luann Linehan in the legislature. And finally, Susan Finney of Springfield writes, on May 10, primary election is just around the corner, and I know I will be casting my vote for Lisa Fricke for Nebraska State Board of Education, District 2. Fricke taught school for 36 years. She knows the classroom. She is dedicated to ensuring that every student in Nebraska gets a good education. Fricke has served as a master teacher mentor for the Intergenerational Mentoring Program, helped develop NESA assessments for reading, writing, and special education, and performed many other jobs to promote the students of Nebraska. I know she will work hard to give all children the best education that they deserve. I am asking you that you vote in the primary. You check the box next to Lisa Fricke's name.
And at 20 minutes past the hour, we'll turn to some of the lighter columns in our papers. This will be the Ask Amy column, appearing in the Omaha World Herald. Dear Amy, I'm a waitress bartender at a restaurant in a small town. Most of the managers at this restaurant live in the same town. I've gotten to know one of my managers, Wendy, pretty well. We have mutual friends that we both go out with, including her husband, Tim. Wendy and Tim are separated and going through a divorce. They live in the same house but sleep in separate beds. I was out a couple of weeks ago and became too drunk to drive home, so I stayed at a friend's house. Tim also stayed there. One thing led to another, and we slept together. I've always had a bit of a crush on Tim, and he's admitted that he likes me back. Last week, we stayed at the friend's house again and slept together again. I don't know how to talk to Tim about where he and Wendy are in terms of their divorce, but I don't want to pursue him for a relationship until he is completely single. I feel guilty sleeping with a man who is still legally married. Your advice? Signed, Guilty in Michigan. Dear Guilty, if you want to do the right thing, then do the right thing. The guilt you're feeling is evidence that you have a conscience, and your conscience is telling you what to do. You were simply choosing not to listen, and that's on you. You should not be sleeping with someone if you're not brave enough to even ask a simple question. What is the status of your marriage? It is easier to get drunk and have sex and then worry about it in the morning. The scenario, as you describe it, is more threatening to you than you seem to realize. You're risking your own self-esteem as well as your employment by sleeping with a husband of your boss. Dear Amy, for most of our 20-year marriage, I have cooked for our family. I am not a fabulous cook, but I can follow a recipe. Over a year ago, I procured a big job making a lot more money in a new city. My husband agreed it would be a good move for our family, and we relocated. While I have been focused on getting established at work, he generously put his career on hold for a while. He has gamely assumed kitchen duties, and I am grateful. Amy, he is a terrible cook. He will not follow any of the recipes in my cookbooks because he feels they stifle his creativity. And boy, does he get creative. For a dish featuring Italian sausage, pasta, and a tomato-based sauce, he substituted the Italian sausage with maple-flavored breakfast sausages. For a guacamole recipe calling for chopped tomatoes and chopped onions, we had no tomatoes, so he doubled the onions instead. When I suggested he follow a recipe, he is offended, saying that it is boring and he likes to experiment. He has rejected cooking classes. I'm very happy to make my own dinner, but this also appears to offend him. Do you have any suggestions? Signed, Desperate for Dinner. Dear Desperate, You don't say whether your husband learns from his experimenting, and if so, great. There are a number of companies offering prepackaged meals that can be delivered to your home each week in a box, complete with all the ingredients, recipes, and ideas. Your husband might enjoy assembling these ingredients and spices and being creative with side dishes. As a gift to your household and a nod to your husband's heroic efforts, you might sign up for one of these services to see how it goes. I also can't resist recommending a great cookbook for men and women like me who want to cook but just don't know how. How to Cook Everything, The Basics, All You Need to Make Great Food by Mark Bittman. I realize this is yet another recipe book, but this one has lots of pictures. Dear Amy, saddened, said she watched her adult son's girlfriend slip a piece of glittery material into her son's pocket while they were shopping together. I'm a crafter, and I think it's possible this was a sample or swatch, which are frequently offered for free. Signed, Crafter. Dear Crafter, I suggested that saddened express her concerns instead of ruminating about it. If she did, her son could easily tell her that the shoplifted material was actually a free sample.
Phantom is in Omaha, and this is a review written by Betsy Freeman entitled Phantom Revamp Fires on All Cylinders. The fate of this Phantom rests on a rotating 10-ton wall, a gorgeous new chandelier, and 2 lead performers with exquisite voices and lots of heart. That's more than enough to carry this new version of Andrew Lloyd Webber's classical musical, but it's not all the show has going for it, not even close. The Phantom of the Opera, now settled into the Orpheum Theater for its 12-day run, boasts an incredible live orchestra made up mostly of local musicians. The supporting cast also is first-rate, and I haven't even gotten to the special effects. Famed producer Cameron McIntosh's revamped Phantom premiered in Britain in 2012 and is now on a North American tour. The only place you can see it at this time, Omaha Performing Arts brought it here as part of its Broadway series. The story remains the same, and it's still gripping. Unusual accidents are happening at the Paris Opera House, and people blame a ghost. It's really the Phantom, Chris Mann, a disfigured and deranged man who falls in love with Christine, Katie Travis, a member of the chorus. He communicates with the Opera House's owners via notes demanding that Christine get lead roles. He gets increasingly disturbed as the object of his obsession falls in love with Raoul, Storm Lineberger. Longtime fans of the musical understandably have wondered whether this show would measure up to the 1986 original. I can't speak to that before Thursday night. I have never seen Phantom, but a friend who went with me had seen it twice before. She said this was by far the best production she's seen. Mann, a finalist on the NBC reality show The Voice, was sinister yet sympathetic as the Phantom. When he said no one had ever shown him affection, you believed it. Travis had an unbelievable, beautiful voice and ably portrayed her character's initial infatuation with the Phantom, her ambivalence over her 2 admirers, and her growing fear as the Phantom gets more threatening. Jacqueline Fontaine and Fumzio Sojala, who played opera singers, also stood out for their awesome vocal work. The round, rotating wall designed by Paul Brown accommodated a variety of settings. It cracked in half to reveal the Phantom's underground lair, sprouted stairs as he and Christine descended into his quarters, and had 2 doors that opened to show the office of the Opera House owners, and was covered with mirrors and gilt for the masquerade scene. All these would have been impossible without computers, and it was amazing. So was the chandelier. Though I was a Phantom newbie, I had heard about the big light fixture, which used to be on stage with the set. This one, however, hangs out over the audience and drops down amid gasps. I bet a lot of hearts dropped with it until people saw it stop above their heads. Be prepared for shooting flames and lots of sparks as well. In interviews before coming to Omaha, McIntosh and Mann said they thought both versions of Phantom were awe-inspiring, just different. Though I've seen only one, I can't help but believe that purists won't be disappointed with this update.
And this is Heloise's column from the World Herald. Dear Heloise, I recall reading about a place to send outdated coupons that can then be used by our soldiers at PXs overseas. Can you give that information again, please? I have people at church saving them. I can't find the address and specifics. I always read your columns. Signed, Helen F. from Prairie Town, Illinois. More than happy to help, and as a military brat, it means a lot to me to be able to spread the word. Coupons can be used by service members and their families to shop at the post, exchange, or commissary. There are groups and clubs all over the United States that have individual programs, so check with your Chamber of Commerce. Here is just one for you, Overseas Coupon Program at www.ocpnet.org. The website has all the information you need, the kinds of coupons accepted, which bases accept them, how to get started, etc. The FAQ, or Frequently Asked Questions section, is a perfect place to learn about the program. P.S. These coupons save our troops a lot of money. Dear Heloise, I recently moved my computer to my bedroom, and I am not a tech-savvy person. To be sure, I hooked up the cables correctly. I took pictures of the hookups with my phone. I videotaped myself talking about the connections between the monitor and the tower. Once in its new location, I was able to walk myself through the process of hooking up my computer correctly and in working order. Thank you, cell phone. Signed, Alyssa M. in Asheville, North Carolina. Dear Heloise, with a dear aunt in a nursing home who sometimes doesn't recall much, I found a way to cheer her up. I live across the country, so I get to visit her only once a year. Last year, I started sending her postcards. It's easy to jot a cheerful note and let her know when or where I was when I bought the card. She keeps them in a basket next to her bed and loves to go through them at any time. Now I pick up all sorts of postcards when I travel and send at least 2 a week. She must have close to 100 by now. Signed, June in Ohio. Love it. A few lines on a postcard can brighten a day. Hugs, Heloise. Dear Heloise, my passion is knitting. To save mental energy that requires remembering where I left off when I return after taking a break, I purchased the same size knitting needles in 2 different colors. I use one color for the odd rows and the other color for even. Now I don't have to remember which row I'm working on. With the extra needles, I can have 2 projects going at the same time or use them to help others learn how to do a particular stitch.
Headliners for Maha include Passion Pit and Singer Grimes. They'll be moving at Maha. Maha Music Festival's main attractions will have fans dancing. Take a Walk electropop artist Passion Pit and lauded experimental pop singer Grimes are the top billed talents coming to Stinson Park at Exarban Village on August 20. Both the Sleepyhead Band and the Flesh Without Blood singer are veterans of festivals such as Coachella and Lollapalooza. As at those 2 major festivals, they'll be followed by artists playing hip-hop, garage rock, punk, and plenty more. Joining Passion Pit and Grimes will be Def Jam rapper Vince Staples, whose latest album, Summertime '06, was considered one of the top albums last year by Pitchfork and other influential music outlets. Welsh alternative rock band The Joy Formidable will bring fuzzy guitar rock from its new album Hitch and will be joined by current indie rock buzz bands Car Seat Headrest and Diet Sig. Lincoln native Matthew Sweet and Sun Volt frontman Jay Farrar will bring a blast from rock and roll's past with music from their respective hit albums Girlfriend 1991 and Trace 1995. Sweet also has a new album, Tomorrow Forever, on the way. Local acts See-Through Dresses, Josh Hoyer and Soul Colossal, and CJ Mills round out the lineup. Tickets are $55, are on sale now at mahamusicfestival.com. VIP packages are still available for $185. Maha Music Festival began in 2009, and the festival sold out for the first time in 2015.
And yesterday marked the death of noted rock artist Prince. Prince will be remembered. One of the most inventive and influential musicians of modern times, Prince was found dead at his home Thursday in suburban Minneapolis at the age of 57. He'll live on through hit songs such as Little Red Corvette, When Doves Cry, Purple Rain, but musicians say his legacy lives with him as well. Members of 311, the platinum-selling rock band that started in Omaha, came together through his music. You can really hear it in the early days of 311. Singer Nick Hexon told the World Herald, "We played funk. Sure, it was white boy funk, but that's what naturally came out of us after listening to so much Prince." Hexum called the artist an all-around musical genius with an inspiring work ethic. Referencing his song Nothing Compares to You, 311's S.A. Martinez said no one compares to Prince. Truly one of the greats, certainly amongst the last of the heavies, he said. The Grammy Award-winning Prince sold more than 20 million albums in the United States, but musicians seem to be the most outspoken about his passing. I've never known a musician who didn't love Prince, who wasn't in awe of his immense talent, said Omaha singer-songwriter Arenda Fink. I'm trying to understand my feelings about living in an age where our icons are falling and there aren't any taking their places. Fink's husband, Todd, added that he felt privileged to be alive at the same time as the Let's Go Crazy singer. Fink, frontman for electric pop rock band The Faint, called Prince a visionary icon worthy of a bust next to the classical masters. Sheriff's officials in Minnesota say deputies found the music superstar unresponsive in an elevator after they were summoned to his suburban Minneapolis compound, Paisley Park. First responders tried CPR but couldn't revive him, said Carver County Sheriff John Olson. Prince was pronounced dead about 10:07 a.m. Thursday, about half an hour after deputies arrived. Reports on the internet that Prince had been treated for a drug overdose days before his death were unsubstantiated. His publicists have not responded to claims, and an autopsy is being conducted today.
We'll turn now to the business and markets. The rural Midwestern economy continued on a downward path in April for the 8th straight month, according to a survey of non-urban bankers in a 10-state region. On a 100-point scale, with numbers above 50 showing growth and below 50 showing decline, the rural Main Street Index was 38, down from 40.2 in March, Creighton University economist Ernie Goss said Thursday. The index is based on a recent survey of 178 bankers in Colorado, Illinois, Iowa, Kansas, Minnesota, Missouri, Nebraska, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Wyoming. Goss said prices for farm and energy commodities have increased recently, but remain well below a year ago. 16% lower for farm products and 8% for energy products, which means less overall income in the region. Average farmland prices declined for the 29th straight month, registering 26.7 on the survey scale. That's a slight improvement from a month ago, but still shows prices dropping. The bankers reported an average cash rents of $211 per acre, down 7% from a year ago, although farmland rents vary widely across the states. Farm equipment manufacturers and dealers are suffering from frail sales, Goss said, traced again to the lower prices for farm goods. Goss said rural employment in the states is in neutral, slightly below a year ago. That's not as positive as this 1.7% gain in employment in the state's urban areas. The bankers also expect continued economic decline with a confidence index of 34.8, based on their view of local economies 6 months from now. A year ago, that index stood at 47. Home sales in rural areas remain strong with an index of 58.9, about the same as a year ago. Iowa's index, 41.2, down from 50.2 in March, with a farmland price index of 45.6 and a hiring index of 56.4. Nebraska's index, 40.5, down from 40.4 48.9 in March, with a farmland price index of 42.8 and a hiring index of 57.3.
And yesterday was mostly a down day for stocks on Wall Street. The Dow was off 113.73 at 17,982.52. It's showing a gain of 3.2% year to date. NASDAQ was down 2.24 at 4,945.89. It's off 1.23% year to date. The S&P 500 lost 10.92 to 2,091.48. It's actually up 2.33% year to date. Crude oil was down $1, settling at $43.18 on the New York Mercantile Exchange. Union Pacific executives said Thursday that they have trimmed the payroll by 11% in the past year and that they expect company workers to be even more efficient in the face of plummeting demand for freight hauling. Wall Street approved. Shares of the company, which had declined 22% in the first 12 months that ended Wednesday, rose 4.1% on news of the personnel reductions and efficiency charge. The share momentum came even as Omaha-based Union Pacific, the second largest U.S. railroad behind Berkshire Hathaway-owned BNSF, said Thursday that first quarter freight volumes fell for a fifth straight quarter. What reduced demand from shippers sent volumes at UP down 8% in the quarter, with shipments falling or breaking even in 5 of the 6 main freight hauling categories. While the company had a profit of almost $1 billion in the quarter, the dim outlook for shipping demand means that more will be expected from less at UP. We will continue to squeeze our productivity, Chief Financial Officer Rob Knight said on a conference call with analysts and investors. We're challenging the entire organization, even administrative groups, to turn over every stone for additional opportunities to be more efficient. Shares climbed $3.45 to close at $87.32 in New York Stock Exchange trading.
In business news briefs, the closing of 68 Kmart and 10 Sears stores announced Thursday by Sears Holding Company will not affect the company's Omaha area stores. The Ayling Company said in February that it would accelerate closing unprofitable stores. A Kmart in Hastings, Nebraska will close. No stores in Iowa are affected. Sears has stores at Crossroads and Oakview malls in Omaha and one in Lincoln. There is one Kmart in Omaha at 50th and L Streets and one in Council Bluffs. More Americans are preparing to renovate their homes this year, signaling a potential boost for the economy, according to projections released by Harvard University's Joint Center for Housing Studies. The report estimates that spending on remodeling and repairs will climb 8.6% this year to $310 billion. The gains would bring renovations close to the 2006 peak of an inflation-adjusted $327 billion. The number of Americans seeking unemployment benefits fell to a 4-decade low last week, a sign that employers are unconcerned about weak economic growth in the first 3 months of 2016. Weekly applications for jobless benefits declined to a seasonally adjusted 247,000, the lowest reading since November 1973, the Labor Department said. The 4-week average, a less volatile figure dropped 4,500 to 260,500. Mortgage buyer Freddie Mac said average long-term U.S. mortgage rates stayed near 2016 lows this week. The benchmark 30-year fixed-rate mortgage edged up to 3.59% from 3.58% last week. The 15-year fixed mortgage rate slipped to 2.85%, the lowest since May 2013, and down from 2.86% last week.
And we'll turn to sports pages. From Dallas, Kevin Durant rattled the rim early with a reverse dunk and pulled up from well behind the three-point line for another of his first-half baskets. The Oklahoma City star was intent on putting aside the worst shooting game of his playoff career. Durant scored 20 of his 34 points in the first half. Russell Westbrook had 20 of his 26 in the second, and the Thunder retook control of their first-round series with a 131-102 victory over the Dallas Mavericks in Game 3 on Thursday night. The 2014 MVP had 7 field goals midway through the second quarter on 9 shots after he needed 33 to get there in Game 2 loss that followed a 38-point win in the opener. The Thunder took a 2-1 series lead with Game 4 on Saturday night in Dallas. When I play well, I don't throw a party for myself afterward, Durant said after his 34th career 30-point season game. If I play terrible, I'm not going to go out and change anything up. I'm going to go out there and do the same thing I've been doing. Dick Nowitzki played despite a right knee bruise and scored 16 points, but the Mavericks let Oklahoma City dictate the pace and couldn't keep up, never leading while missing 10 of their first 12 shots from three-point range. The way we won Game 2 was a slower paced game for us, kind of grinded out, Nowitzki said of the 85-84 win. It's going to be tough for us to win a game if they score 131 points. I don't think you can score 131 right now with the team we roll out there, the injuries. Westbrook answered the best Dallas run of the second half with alternating three-pointers and assists on 4 straight possessions to help push a 10-point lead back to 18. He finished with 15 assists, one off his playoff career high. The NBA leader in triple-doubles during the regular season had an oddity with no rebounds. I don't know the last time I did that, Westbrook said with a smile, but maybe next time I'll get one. In other action, Toronto beat Indiana yesterday, 101-85. The Raptors now lead 2-1 in that series. And Houston edged Golden State, 97-96. The Warriors, though, lead 2-1.
And for the boxing fans out there, it's a done deal. According to Terrence Bud Crawford's co-manager and head trainer, Brian Bomac McIntyre, his fighter and fellow 140-pound champion, Victor Iceman Postol, will meet in the ring this summer. The unification bout between the world's top junior welterweights takes place on July 23 in Las Vegas. Promoter Bob Arum of Top Rank told ESPN he's planning for an official fight announcement on May 24. McIntyre said his team has the paperwork in hand, as does the group with the opponent. Crawford, 28-0, 20 knockouts, the WBO champion, and Postol, 28-0, 12 knockouts, and WBC belt holder, will square off at the MGM Grand in what will be the first HBO pay-per-view event in either of their careers. Not long ago, some deemed Crawford not marketable enough yet to deserve a fight with retiring future Hall of Famer Manny Pacquiao. Now he's headlining against an opponent who's even less established. It's a concern, but to be honest, that's the last thing I'm worried about, McIntyre said. What I want is for Terrence to unify these titles and let everyone know he is the number one 140-pounder out there. While fighters on pay-per-view cards earn a guaranteed amount of money, their final purse from the bout will be determined by an additional percentage based on the number of overall buys. I'm really happy for Terrence, but doing it the first time is kind of nervous, McIntyre said. We were kind of hesitant about the business end of it. It's basically on us to see how many fans we've really got. Once people push buy and the numbers come back, then you'll find out how many you've got. HBO has featured both fighters on subscription cable in the past 3 years. Crawford has appeared on the network 8 times since the start of 2013. Postol has fought on HBO twice in his last 3 bouts. The Ukrainian recorded knockouts on both occasions, something he's done very infrequently prior to hooking up with 7-time trainer of the year, Freddie Roach, before his HBO debut in May 2014. He stopped Cook Aydin 26-2 in the closing seconds of the 11th round of a WC title eliminator that night. The victory put Postol in position to get his first shot at a world title. It finally came last October 3 in Carson, California, and he made the most of it. Postol stunned the boxing world by halting rugged contender Lucas Mathis of Argentina late in the 10th round to claim the vacant WBC championship. This summer's bout will be his first since winning the title. Crawford has defended his version of the junior welterweight crown twice since winning it in last April in Arlington, Texas, with a 6th-round technical knockout at Thomas Dulorme. The champ battered Derry Jean in a 10-round stoppage in Omaha last October before throttling Hank Lundy in 5 rounds in New York in February. The former lineal lightweight champion hasn't been tested since moving up. Lundy is the lone common opponent for Crawford and Postal. The WBC champion won a unanimous 12-round decision over the brash boxer from Philadelphia for a minor belt in Kiev, Ukraine in March 2013. Postal's win over Lundy came 9 days before Crawford made his HBO debut against 140-pound slugger Brydeece Prescott. The Omahan took the fight on short notice and moved up in weight to do so. Crawford, who stands 5'8", dominated the lanky 5'11" Colombian over 10 rounds in a one-sided fight that ignited his rise to stardom. He's now rated as one of the top pound-for-pound fighters in the world. Postal also stands 5'11" and would be Crawford's tallest opponent since Prescott. He's not as highly regarded or as physically gifted as former unified welterweight champion Yuri Orkis Gamboa, whom Crawford KO'd in 9-round thriller at lightweight, but he's expected to provide a tough challenge. We've seen it before. It ain't nothing different, McIntyre said, pointing out Crawford's knockout wins over Andre Gorgeous and Anthony Mora, who both stood near 6 foot tall. I will say that he's got a nice jab, but you take away the jab, you take away his jab early and go to the body.
From Cincinnati, Jake Arrieta's first no-hitter set him apart. Pitching another one in a span of only 11 regular season starts has put the Chicago Cubs ace in elite company. And his catcher suspects that the reigning NL Cy Young winner has a few more of those no-hit moments left in him. Arrieta overcame early sloppiness, but bore down at the end, shutting down the Cincinnati Reds in a 16-0 rout on Thursday night that left everyone amazed except him. After all, he'd done it before. It feels different the second time, said Arrieta, who did his best pitching in the last few innings with the gem in reach. I was a little more relaxed as the game progressed. Arrieta, 4-0, struck out 6, walked 4, and allowed only 6 balls hit out of the infield during the first no-hitter in Major League Baseball this season. No spectacular plays were needed by Cubs fielders to preserve Arrieta's performance. He threw 119 pitches, retiring Eugenio Suarez on a routine fly ball to right field to end it. Arrieta threw his first career no-hitter August 30 at Dodger Stadium, beating Los Angeles 2-0. That game came as Arrieta put together one of the best pitching stretches in club history. He's 15-0 in his last 16 regular season starts. What can I say, manager Joe Maddon said. Man, it was spectacular. The Reds hadn't been held hitless in a regular season game since 1971, when Rick Wise did it for Philadelphia at Riverfront Stadium. In the 2010 NL playoffs, Roy Halladay of the Phillies pitched a no-hitter against Cincinnati. We got dominated, Reds outfielder Jay Bruce said. That's the most dominating game I've ever been a part of. He was great. We weren't. In other action in Major League Baseball yesterday, around the American League, Seattle beat Cleveland 10-7 in 10 innings. It was Tampa Bay defeating Boston 12-8. Los Angeles beat Chicago 3-2. It was Oakland beating New York 7-3. Baltimore edged Toronto 3-2. It was Kansas City blanking Detroit 4-0, and Texas beat Houston 7-4. In the National League, Los Angeles beat Atlanta 2-1 in 10. It was Miami beating Washington 5-1. Arizona over San Francisco 6-2. Of course, Chicago blanked Cleveland 16-0 with a no-hitter. Pittsburgh trounced San Diego 11-1. And in Round Rock play, Round Rock scored a pair of two-out runs in the bottom of the seventh to pull away for a 3-2 win over the Omaha Storm Chasers on Thursday. With the game tied 1-1, Omaha reliever David Huff set down the first two Round Rock hitters in the seventh. He then gave up a double to Patrick Cantwell, an RBI triple to James Jones, and an RBI double to Juraxen Profar to give the Express a 3-1 lead. The Chasers, now 9-6, added a run in the top of the eighth, but they couldn't score again as their recent offensive troubles continued. Omaha has now scored just 6 combined runs in its last 4 games. Brooks Pounders gave up just 1 run on 2 hits over 5.5 innings as Huff took the loss. The Storm Chasers finished their series at Round Rock with a game at 7:05 p.m. Friday.
From Lincoln, Nebraska linebackers coach Trent Bray had been on the job for less than 2 months when NU reached out to a highly touted prospect from Delaware. It was all the way back on February 2, 2015. That afternoon, Avery Roberts tweeted that he'd received a scholarship offer from the Huskers, essentially the first step in the recruitment of any elite level athlete. What occurs in the months following is always the key, and it appears, particularly in this case, those relationship-forming moments between Bray and the linebacker made the difference. Roberts revealed Thursday on Twitter that he plans to attend Nebraska, becoming the 7th known member of NU's 2017 recruiting class. The 6'1", 215-pound prospect from Wilmington, Delaware, is one of the most talented within NU's already impressive haul. He's a consensus 4-star prospect, rated in the top 10 nationally by his position by all 4 major recruiting services. Rivals is the only one that lists him as an outside linebacker instead of an inside linebacker. According to 24/7 Sports composite rating, Roberts is the nation's 185th best overall prospect. Quarterback Tristan Gebbia, number 155, and receiver Keyshawn Johnson Jr., number 222, are the 2 other 2017 NU pledges ranked inside the composite top 250. Like Gebbia and Johnson, Roberts has been high on Nebraska's list for some time, and for good reason, his high school coach said. Roberts, after contributing as a freshman, had a breakout sophomore season for Concord High School 2 years ago, more than 100 tackles, Coach Greg Mitchell said. By the 3rd or 4th game of his freshman year, we knew he was going to be pretty good, and he had a big sophomore year, Mitchell said. The nation's powerhouses had all expressed interest as the spring and summer unfolded. Roberts did miss a little more than 2 games with an injury last season, but he still recorded more than 70 tackles. Roberts also played fullback for Concord. He's a big hitter, Mitchell said, very physical. He really pursues downhill very well. It appears to run in the family. Robert's older brother, Grant, just finished up his 2nd season as a linebacker at FCS level Delaware. Younger brother, Graham, is a 2018 running back recruit who already has scholarship offers from Nebraska. Perhaps the early identification will pay off for NU with Graham, the same way it did with Avery. Husker coach Mike Riley can't comment specifically about recruits, but he did mention Thursday night on his radio show that he and his staff have further emphasized the evaluation process since taking over Nebraska's program. It's critical for a school with a coast-to-coast recruiting plan to carefully manage where to invest its time and energy. If you're not the right guy, either the right person who you want on your team and who you want at your university, or the right player, then the recruiting doesn't matter, Riley said on Sports Nightly on the Husker Sports Network. It's a twofold process. The first one gets you started, the evaluation, and then the recruiting and the educating of the building of the relationship that is going to be the key factor. Their hard work has paid off so far this 2017 cycle. Willie Hampton out of West Palm Beach, Florida, was the first recruit to make a non-binding commitment to Nebraska on March 9. He joins Roberts as the only 2 linebackers to this point. The entire group, though, has attracted national acclaim. The attention seemed to be at its peak when Johnson committed about a month ago, but the Huskers are still giving analysts, fans, and prospects reason to keep NU in the conversation. Since Johnson's announcement, Nebraska has added a quarterback, Gebbia, an in-state tight end recruit, Austin Allen, and an offensive tackle, Brendan James. Receiver Javon McQuitty also pledged to NU. There's a little bit of buzz about us right now in recruiting, Riley said, and there's a really good thing. That's momentum. That momentum can help us continue to build.
Andrew White said he didn't enter his name into the NBA draft process Thursday just for the heck of it. Nebraska is number 2 scorer with 16.6 points and number 1 rebounder at 5.9. Will do his best to impress some team enough to draft him. But if that doesn't translate to or doesn't transpire by the May 25 deadline to withdraw, playing a senior year for the Huskers is a good alternative. White, in an interview Thursday night, declined to put a percentage on the likelihood he'll return to NU. It all depends on what workouts I'm in and how I do when I'm there, he said, the 6'7" wing from Richmond, Virginia. Being as optimistic as possible, I assume somewhat that I can get there. I'm grateful to this program and have good relationships here. I don't want to do anything to jeopardize that at this point. White said Thursday's announcement came after 3 weeks of homework on the NBA early entry process and discussion with head coach Tim Miles and assistant Kenya Hunter. We support Andrew fully in this process and we'll help him in every way we can, Miles said. We'd love to have him back here at Nebraska, but we will support him as he tests the waters on this process. It is top of the hour, so time for us to make way for other programming on the Radio Talking Book Network. I'm Ralph Morocco, and it's been my pleasure to be with you today. Hope you have a great weekend.
And this is Bob Gotting. It's great to be back and a pleasure reading for you today, and we will talk to you next week.
Thank you, gentlemen, very much. Thank you, Bob Gotting. Welcome back. Thank you, Ralph, for giving up your time so that we can be kept informed.